Hello everyone, and welcome to the third installment in a series of videos in which I go through the research process as I'm conducting a study. So you may have noticed I look a little bit different in this video, and that's because this is actually a remake of a video. The earlier version of this got corrupted and I wasn't able to save it, so we are doing this in future. This is the future, and I'm coming back to tell you about this part of the study. Refilming the third installment. So when you get to the next installment, I'll look different again, and then I'll go back to looking like this for the rest of it. In the previous video, in the second video, I gave you a rough outline for the background of the study that I'm working on, and today I'm going to show you how I design the study. So I've already actually done this part. I mean, I've really already done it at this point in time, but even in the original version of this video, I had already done it. I actually planned this study last summer. At least I had a loose plan. So it seems like it's happening immediately, but it's not happening immediately. This is thinking over a period of time. Unfortunately, it's not really a visual activity. There's no way you can really watch me thinking as I'm doing it, so I think it's okay that we're just recapping things that I have already thought about in the past. Also, as you move on in research, it does get faster to plan a study. You start getting more ideas, you start getting better ideas, you know a lot easier which ideas are good and which ideas are bad. So as you get more experience in research, you do end up getting faster and faster at designing a study, but not ever this fast, as this is going to seem. Okay. So last time we ended on a research question, which was which type of book best supports learning words and content. So just hearing that, I can tell immediately that that has to be an experiment. Whenever we say which X does Y best, we're asking a causal question. Does this cause this other thing? Does the genre cause learning? We're not saying that it's the only cause of learning, but we're saying that it's a cause. And if you have a question about causes, then the answer has to be found with experiments. Experiments are the only way you can answer causal questions. So then the next step is to set up the experiment. So my first idea was, if I'm interested in how kids learn from different types of books, then what I'll do is show each kid 3 different types of books, test how much they learn from each book, and then compare it. That's called a within subjects design because each participant gets all the different variations of the study. But already, as soon as I thought of that, I could see a flaw. There's a major flaw in that plan. What are the books going to be about? So if I make them about all different topics, say an information book about an insect and then a storybook about trucks, that means that the things I might want kids to learn, they're already going to vary in knowledge about. If kids do better at reading an information book about insects than they do about reading a storybook about trucks, is that because they understand insects better, or is it because they understand information books better? And since I'm only interested in information books, I don't care that much about what kids know about insects. I have to have them. That's not going to work for me. I need to be able to say at the end that it was the genre making the difference. And if they're reading different stories in each category, then I can't end up saying that. That means that I'm going to have kids read the same book. They're going to have to read the same book. And if they're reading the same book in each category, that also makes it really hard to do within subjects design, where every person gets all the variations, because I won't know whether, so if they read an information book about trucks and a storybook about trucks, and they do better in the storybook version, is that because it was the storybook, or was it because they read it second and now they've heard everything, all those pieces of information twice? So I can't do it within subjects with different books, because that's going to confound the results, and I can't do within subjects with the same book or the same topic, because that's going to confound the results. So that means we just can't do it within subjects design. That's not going to work. So that means that we're going to have to do, if we can't do within subjects, that means we're going to have to do between subjects design. What that means is that each kid gets one version of the study, and then the next kid gets the next version, next kid gets the next version, and eventually you have a group of kids that get all one version, a group of kids that get the next version, etc. Okay, and then we compare the groups of kids at the end. Okay, so that gives us a general framework to work with. We have established it by default. It's the only one we could potentially do, so that makes it an easy choice. So then, having that general framework, the next step is to figure out what those books are going to look like for each of those groups. So for experiments and for between subjects design, the key thing is that you want the groups to be as similar as possible. At the student level, the way we solve that is by randomly assigning the kids to groups. That means that any kid who wants to participate in the study has an equal chance of getting any of the books. So that really takes care of the students in each group being different, because that's just how randomness works. We generally, well, if you take quantitative research, you'll learn more about that, but just trust me when I say that randomness takes care of that particular issue. Once we get those kids randomly assigned, we need to make sure that within the study, once they're in the study, their experiences are as consistent as possible. That means, one, of course, the books are going to have to be at the same topic. That was the reason we rejected within subjects in the first place. And two, we need a way to neutralize their background knowledge. Now, I've done a lot of research on background knowledge in the past, as I mentioned before, and we know that background knowledge influences how much you can learn. So that means even though we're randomly assigning kids and we expect between groups the background knowledge to even itself out, because background knowledge it can impact how much you learn, we're going to want to take some steps to stabilize that on top of the random assignment. So that means we're going to need a topic that all kids know equally. And when we say a topic that all kids know equally, because all kids are always different, there's no way to do that except for a topic that kids don't know at all. The only way to make sure kids have equal knowledge is to make sure they have no knowledge, which means we're learning some nonsense.
Fortunately, I've done this before. In previous studies, when I needed children to learn something about which they knew absolutely nothing, I invented these guys. They're called WUGS, W-U-G-S. They have fur, lay eggs, sleep in hives, eat hay. And we can use that same basic framework. In the past, I've developed a hybrid book that includes this information. So we really just have to include more pieces of information and develop a storybook and an information book to go along with them.
Okay, so that really sets up the study. It's going to be an experiment. It's going to be a between participants design. We're going to read kids a story about a nonsense topic in 3 different formats. As we read the story, we're not going to answer any questions or provide any extra textual talk, and that's again just to make sure that each kid's experience is the same. The easiest way to make it the same is to make sure it's none. All the assistants doing the testing will be trained to say the exact same thing in the exact same way, and that way all the kids have the same experience in everything except the genre of book. That way, if there are differences between the groups, we can say we know it was the genre of group that made the difference, because that's the only actual difference between groups. Okay? So that's the study. Hopefully it works out.